The notification sound pierced the quiet of Mark Wilson's apartment like a thunderclap. 3 little words glowed on his phone screen, "So you, huh?" And just like that, Mark realized he'd made the digital equivalent of walking into a glass door. He had accidentally swiped right on his ex-wife's sister, Ellie. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories that explore the messy, beautiful complexity of modern relationships. Mark hadn't meant to like Ellie's profile. It was late, he was exhausted after putting his 7-year-old daughter Lily to bed, and he'd been mindlessly swiping through profiles on the dating app his friends had convinced him to join. "It's been 3 years since the divorce, Mark," they'd said. "Time to get back out there." But dating as a 36-year-old single father felt like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while blindfolded, impossible and slightly humiliating. When Ellie's profile appeared, he'd been so shocked to see her familiar face that his thumb had instinctively swiped right before his brain could catch up. And now here he was, staring at her message with a mixture of horror and something else he couldn't quite identify. "Dad, who are you texting?" Lily asked, peering over his shoulder the next morning at breakfast. "Your face looks all weird." Mark quickly locked his phone. "No one important, sweetheart. Eat your cereal before it gets soggy." But it was important, and that's what terrified him. Ellie had always been the complete opposite of his ex-wife, Caroline. Where Caroline was methodical and reserved, Ellie was spontaneous and warm. Where Caroline had viewed Mark's passion for photography as an impractical hobby, Ellie had always asked to see his latest shots. The sisters were night and day, and Mark had sometimes wondered, in the dark corners of his mind that he rarely visited, if he'd fallen for the wrong sister. After dropping Lily at school, Mark sat in his car and finally replied to Ellie, "I'm so sorry. It was an accident. My thumb slipped." Her response came almost immediately, "Was it really an accident, Mark? Or was it the universe's way of saying hello?" That was so Ellie, finding meaning in coincidences, possibility in mistakes. Caroline would have called it Ellie's woo-woo nonsense, but Mark had always found it endearing. "The universe hasn't exactly been kind to me lately," he typed back. "Then maybe it's making amends," she replied. "Coffee tomorrow? As friends. I'm in town for the week." Mark's heart hammered against his ribs. Coffee with Ellie meant potentially angering Caroline, which could affect his custody arrangement with Lily. But it also meant an hour of conversation with someone who had always understood him in ways Caroline never had. "I don't know if that's a good idea," he wrote. "Since when do good ideas lead to great stories?" came her reply. The next day, Mark found himself sitting across from Ellie at a small cafe downtown, his hands wrapped around a mug to hide their slight tremor. She looked different, her once long brown hair now cut into a stylish bob, new laugh lines around her eyes, but her smile was exactly as he remembered. "So, single fatherhood," she said, stirring her latte. "How's that going?" "It's challenging," Mark admitted. "I love Lily more than anything, but sometimes I feel like I'm failing her." Caroline was always the organized one, the one who knew which socks matched which outfits and how to braid hair properly. "I sent Lily to school with uneven pigtails last week, and she came home saying the other kids laughed." Ellie reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "Kids are resilient, Mark. She doesn't need perfect pigtails, she needs you." There was something about Ellie's presence that made the weight on Mark's shoulders feel lighter. For the first time in years, he found himself talking about his photography again, about the local newspaper that had recently published one of his shots, about his dream of someday having his own exhibition. "You should do it," Ellie said, her eyes bright with conviction. "Life's too short for somedays." "Life's also complicated when you're a single parent," Mark countered. "I can barely find time to shower, let alone pursue creative dreams." Ellie tilted her head. "What if I told you I could help? I'm a gallery curator now in Chicago, but I'm looking to move back home. Maybe we could collaborate on something." The idea sent a thrill through Mark, quickly followed by a wave of anxiety. What would Caroline say? She'd think I was trying to use you to get ahead. Caroline doesn't get to dictate either of our lives anymore, Ellie said firmly. It's been 3 years, Mark. As they parted ways, Ellie hugged him tightly. Think about it, she whispered. We could create something beautiful. That night, after Lily was asleep, Mark scrolled through his camera roll, thousands of photos he'd taken over the years but never shared with anyone. Landscapes, street scenes, candid moments of Lily growing up. Each image told a story, captured a feeling. Could they be enough for an exhibition? Was he enough? The next week passed in a blur of work, school drop-offs, and texts with Ellie. She sent him information about upcoming exhibition opportunities, offered to review his portfolio, and made him laugh with stories about terrible dates she'd been on. The last guy showed up wearing a fanny pack and spent the entire dinner talking about his extensive collection of commemorative spoons, she wrote. At least your accidental swipe had potential. Mark found himself looking forward to her messages, planning what he would tell her about his day. It felt dangerous, this growing connection, but also inevitable, like water finding its way through cracks in a dam. Then came the call from Caroline. Ellie told me you two have been spending time together, she said, her voice tight with disapproval. We had coffee once, Mark replied, omitting the daily texts and the plans they were making for his photography. She's my sister, Mark. It's inappropriate. We're just friends, he insisted, though even as he said it, he wondered if that was true. She's always had a thing for you, Caroline continued. Even when we were married. I don't want her around Lily, filling her head with unrealistic ideas. Mark felt a surge of anger. Unrealistic ideas like pursuing your passions? Like finding joy in creativity? Those are exactly the ideas I want Lily exposed to. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I need to go, Caroline finally said. Just, be careful, Mark. You know how Ellie is, all big dreams and no follow-through. Don't let her disappoint you. Or worse, don't let her disappoint Lily. The words haunted Mark. Was Caroline right? Was he setting himself up for heartbreak by letting Ellie back into his life? Was he risking Lily's happiness for his own selfish desires? He cancelled his next meeting with Ellie, making up an excuse about Lily being sick. Ellie sent soup to their apartment and a stuffed animal for Lily, along with a note, missing our chats. Get well soon, both of you. The gesture made Mark's chest ache with longing and guilt. He needed to make a decision. For 3 days, he avoided Ellie's texts, focusing instead on work and Lily, trying to convince himself that their lives were fine just as they were. On the 4th day, Lily found him sitting on the couch, staring at his phone. Are you sad, Daddy? She asked, climbing onto his lap. No, sweetie, he lied. Just thinking. Lily studied his face with the perceptiveness only children possess. Is it about Aunt Ellie? Mom said you were talking to her again, and it made her mad. Mark sighed. Your mom and I, we sometimes disagree about things. I like Aunt Ellie, Lily declared. She always laughs at my jokes, even the bad ones. And she said my uneven pigtails were a fashion statement. Mark smiled despite himself. She did she? Lily nodded earnestly. She said sometimes the best things in life are a little uneven. Out of the mouths of babes. Mark hugged his daughter close, inhaling the sweet scent of her shampoo. Lily, what would you think if Aunt Ellie and I became special friends? Lily pulled back, her face scrunched in thought. Like boyfriend and girlfriend? Maybe. Someday. Would that be okay with you? Would Mom be mad? Mark hesitated. She might be, at first. But sometimes adults disagree about things, and that's okay. What matters is that we all love you very much. Lily considered this. Would you be happier? You smile more when you talk about Aunt Ellie. Mark's heart swelled. I do? Uh-huh. And you showed me your camera again. You stopped doing that after you and Mom split up. In that moment, Mark realized that children see far more than we give them credit for. Lily had noticed his joy fading, and its recent re-emergence. I think I might be happier, yes, he admitted. But your happiness comes first, always. Lily wrapped her small arms around his neck. I want you to be happy too, Daddy. That night, Mark sent Ellie a message, I'm sorry for disappearing. Caroline called, and I panicked. But I'm done letting fear make my decisions. Coffee tomorrow? Her reply came seconds later, I thought you'd never ask. Their second coffee date turned into dinner, which turned into weekend outings with Lily, which evolved into Ellie helping Mark curate his first photography exhibition. Caroline's initial anger gradually softened into reluctant acceptance as she saw how happy Lily was when she returned from weekends with Mark and Ellie, bubbling with stories about photography adventures and the funny-shaped pancakes Ellie made. 6 months after that accidental swipe right, Mark's exhibition opened at a small local gallery. His photographs, capturing moments of everyday beauty, many featuring Lily's unabashed joy, lined the walls. In the center of the room, a special installation, a series of images showing hands in various states of connection. A child's hand in an adult's. 2 hands intertwined. A single hand reaching outward. It's called connections, Mark explained to the attendees. Because sometimes the most meaningful moments in our lives happen when we reach out, intentionally or accidentally, and someone reaches back. His eyes found Ellie's across the room, and she smiled, raising her glass in a silent toast. Later that night, as they walked home under a canopy of stars, Lily skipping ahead of them, Ellie slipped her hand into Mark's. You know what I think, she said. I don't think that swipe was an accident at all. No? Mark raised an eyebrow. What was it then? It was your thumb being braver than your brain, she replied with a grin. Sometimes our bodies know what we need before our minds are ready to admit it. Mark laughed and pulled her closer. Or maybe it was just the universe's way of saying hello. That's my line, she protested, bumping her hip against his. I know, he said softly. I've been paying attention. And he had been, to the way Ellie lit up a room, to how she encouraged both him and Lily to embrace imperfection, to the countless ways she showed her love through actions rather than words. In a world of carefully curated online profiles and calculated swipes, their connection had begun with a mistake, the most honest interaction either of them had experienced in years. 3 simple words had changed everything. So you, huh? A question that had become an answer, a beginning that had emerged from an ending, a reminder that sometimes our most meaningful connections come when we least expect them. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the beautiful messiness of human relationships. Sometimes the wrong swipe leads us exactly where we need to be. It certainly did for me when I accidentally connected with someone from my past who became the most important person in my present. Life has a funny way of bringing the right people into our lives, often through what seems like mistakes. But perhaps there are no mistakes, only different paths to where we're meant to be.